The office was quiet, the kind of stillness that only arrived after the frenzy of a long workday had subsided. Lena leaned back in her chair, stretching her arms as she glanced at the clock. Another late evening at Hartford Enterprises, a familiar routine for her as Mr. Hartford's dedicated secretary. Her phone buzzed on the desk, its glow cutting through the dimly lit room. She smiled when she saw the message. It was from Eric, her boyfriend. His texts always seemed to brighten her day, even on the most exhausting of nights. His message read, "Hey love, don't work too hard. Can't wait to see you this weekend." It was simple but filled with warmth. Lena's heart swelled as she typed back a quick reply. Then, on a whim, she decided to send him a playful photo she had snapped earlier that morning. It wasn't anything too risque, just a candid moment where she felt beautiful. Lena snapped her fingers, triggering Siri. "Send this photo to Eric," she said cheerfully, her eyes scanning her phone screen to confirm the message was being sent. As the loading circle completed, a sinking feeling took over. The photo wasn't sent to Eric. It was sent to the all-staff group chat. Her blood ran cold. That chat included everyone in the office, from interns to senior management and most alarmingly, Mr. Hartford himself. Panic erupted inside her as she scrambled to undo the mistake. Her fingers fumbled over the screen as she hurriedly opened the chat. The image was right there, glaring on the screen, bold and unmistakable. The silence was suffocating as she hit the delete button. Thankfully, the app confirmed the photo had been removed. Lena exhaled shakily, her heart pounding in her chest. She sat frozen, staring at the chat, waiting for the inevitable. But nothing happened. No one had reacted. No one had commented. The chat remained as still as it had been before the incident. Maybe no one saw it, she thought, clinging to the shred of hope. She replayed the moment in her mind, trying to convince herself that the message had been deleted quickly enough. Surely, if anyone had noticed, they would have said something, right? But the unease wouldn't go away. As Lena packed her belongings to leave the office, her stomach churned with anxiety. Every glance from a colleague seemed loaded, every word spoken sounded suspiciously cryptic. By the time she got home, she was too exhausted to think about it anymore. She convinced herself that the worst had passed. The next day, Lena walked into the office with tentative optimism. She greeted her coworkers with a bright smile, trying to mask the lingering nervousness gnawing at her insides. Her day started as usual, filled with emails, scheduling, and brief phone calls. It wasn't until midday that she was called into Mr. Hartford's office. His tone was curt and professional when he summoned her, but the moment she stepped into his sleek, glass-walled office, something in his demeanor unsettled her. He was leaning back in his chair, a faint smirk playing on his lips. "Lena," he began, his voice smooth, "about last night's little incident." Her breath hitched. So, he had seen it. She struggled to find the words, but before she could speak, Hartford continued. "Relax," he said, waving a hand dismissively. "I understand mistakes happen. But I can't help but wonder if you realize how damaging something like this could be to your career." Lena's cheeks burned with embarrassment and shame. I deleted it immediately," she stammered, trying to salvage whatever dignity she had left. "Oh, but I saw it before you deleted it," Hartford said, his tone dropping to something colder, more sinister. He leaned forward, his steely eyes locking onto hers. "And I have to admit, it was surprising." A heavy silence fell over the room. Lena's instincts screamed at her to leave, but her legs felt rooted to the floor. Hartford smiled, a gesture devoid of warmth. "Now, I'm willing to keep this between us," he said, "but it might require some cooperation on your part." Lena blinked, confusion quickly giving way to dread. The implication in his words was unmistakable. Her stomach churned as she realized the trap she had inadvertently walked into. Hartford wasn't just mentioning the incident, he was blackmailing her. As the reality of the situation sank in, Lena felt a rush of emotions, fear, anger, and humiliation all at once. She nodded mutely, murmuring something non-committal before excusing herself from his office. When she returned to her desk, her hands were shaking, but her mind was already racing. This wasn't just an unfortunate mistake anymore. It was something far darker, and Lena knew she couldn't face it alone. Lena sat on her living room couch, staring blankly at the phone resting on the coffee table. The events of the day replayed in her mind on a torturous loop: her boss's smug expression, his insinuating words, and the thinly veiled threat cloaked as a suggestion. She hugged a cushion tightly, her body tense with a mix of fear and rage. This wasn't just about a silly mistake anymore. Hartford's actions crossed a line, and the realization was crushing. For years, Lena had built her reputation as a dependable and professional employee. Her career meant everything to her, and now it was under threat, not because of her competence but because of someone else's corruption. The idea of confronting him directly was terrifying. Hartford was powerful, well-connected, and intimidating. But the thought of giving in to his demands made her stomach churn. Feeling overwhelmed, Lena grabbed her phone and dialed the one person she knew would understand: her best friend, Mia. Mia was a lawyer specializing in workplace rights, and her no-nonsense approach to life was something Lena had always admired. When she picked up the call, her voice was warm and reassuring. "Lena, what's wrong?" Mia asked immediately, sensing the distress in her friend's voice. Lena hesitated, the shame of recounting the incident threatening to overwhelm her. But as soon as she started speaking, the words tumbled out in a flood. She told Mia everything: the mistaken photo, Hartford's reaction, and his abhorrent attempt to use it against her. By the time she finished, her voice was trembling. Mia didn't hesitate. "Lena, listen to me. None of this is your fault. He's the one in the wrong here, not you. You have rights, and you're not alone in this." "But what can I do?" Lena asked, her voice small. "He's my boss. He could ruin my career, Mia." "And he's counting on you thinking that," Mia replied firmly. "That's how people like him get away with this kind of behavior. But we're not going to let him. We're going to fight back." Over the next hour, Mia laid out a plan. First, Lena needed to gather evidence. They needed concrete proof of Hartford's blackmail and misconduct, something undeniable. Mia suggested Lena start recording her interactions with him, using her phone discreetly when they spoke. She also advised Lena to save any emails, messages, or other communication that could support her case. "You need to document everything," Mia said. "Every inappropriate comment, every subtle threat, write it all down. Dates, times, details. The more evidence we have, the stronger your case will be." Lena felt a flicker of hope amidst her fear. Mia's confidence was contagious, and for the first time since the incident, she felt like she had a path forward. But the thought of confronting Hartford again made her stomach tighten. "What if he finds out I'm recording him?" Lena asked hesitantly. Mia's tone softened. "It's natural to feel scared, Lena. But remember, you're not alone in this. I'll be here every step of the way. And if things escalate, we'll take this to HR or even legal authorities. You don't have to face him alone." The conversation bolstered Lena's resolve. The next morning, she walked into the office with her head held high, her phone discreetly tucked in her blazer pocket, ready to record. Hartford called her into his office later that day, and though her heart pounded in her chest, she steadied her breathing and pressed the record button as she entered. As expected, Hartford continued his manipulative remarks, insinuating that he could forget about the photo if she made it worth his while. Lena kept her responses neutral, biting back her anger while ensuring she captured every word. After the meeting, she immediately sent the recording to Mia, who replied with a single text: "This is it. You've got him now." Over the next 2 weeks, Lena continued to gather evidence. Each interaction with Hartford was a test of her composure, but with Mia's support and her growing sense of determination, she endured. Slowly but surely, she built a case against him, brick by brick. Every time she felt the weight of fear pressing down on her, Lena reminded herself of what Mia had said: "You have rights, and you're not alone." Those words became her mantra, fueling her resolve to see this through to the end. The sun streamed through the tall windows of the office building, casting long streaks of light across the carpeted floor. Lena walked into the office that morning with a confidence she hadn't felt in weeks. Her steps were steady, her gaze unwavering. Today was the day she would take back control. The manila envelope in her bag felt heavier than it was. Inside it lay her weapon, weeks of meticulously gathered evidence against Mr. Hartford. Every inappropriate comment he had made, every veiled threat, and every piece of his manipulative scheme was carefully documented and organized. As Lena approached Hartford's office, her heart beat faster, but this time, it wasn't from fear. It was from anticipation. She knocked on the door firmly, and his voice called her in. "Ah, Lena," Hartford said with his usual air of smug authority. He leaned back in his chair, clearly enjoying the illusion of control he believed he still had. "What can I do for you today?" Lena closed the door behind her and stepped forward. For a moment, she studied the man who had turned her life upside down. She saw not a powerful figure but a man who relied on fear to manipulate others, a man who believed he was untouchable. "I need to talk to you about something important," Lena began, her voice calm but firm. She reached into her bag and pulled out the envelope, placing it on his desk. Hartford's expression shifted slightly, the confident smirk faltering as he glanced at the envelope. "What's this?" he asked, trying to maintain his composure. "Proof," Lena said simply. "Proof of everything you've done. Your blackmail, your threats, your abuse of power. It's all in there." Hartford froze, his hand hovering over the envelope. For a moment, the office was silent, the air thick with tension. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and dangerous. "You think you can come in here and threaten me? Do you have any idea who you're dealing with?" Lena didn't flinch. "I know exactly who I'm dealing with. And I know that this evidence is more than enough to hold you accountable. If you try to retaliate against me or anyone else, this goes straight to HR and the authorities." Hartford's bravado cracked further as he opened the envelope and began flipping through the pages. Each piece of evidence hit him like a blow. The recorded conversations, the detailed notes, the timestamps, it was all there, irrefutable and damning. His face paled, and his voice wavered. "You don't want to do this, Lena. I can make this go away. You'll regret it if you go down this path." Lena's eyes hardened. "No, Mr. Hartford. The only thing I regret is not standing up to you sooner." He shifted tactics, attempting to intimidate her. "You think HR will believe you over me? I've been with this company for years. My reputation is already ruined," Lena interrupted. She leaned forward, her voice steady and unyielding. "This isn't just about me. You've done this to others, haven't you? I'm not the first, and I doubt I would have been the last. But that ends now." Hartford opened his mouth to respond but closed it again, seemingly realizing the futility of his situation. For the first time, he looked genuinely unsettled. "I'm giving this to HR today," Lena continued. "And if they try to sweep it under the rug, I'll take it to the authorities. Either way, you won't be able to hide what you've done." For a moment, Hartford sat motionless, the weight of his actions crashing down on him. He looked smaller now, his air of dominance evaporating. Lena turned and walked out of his office, leaving him alone with the damning evidence. As she made her way to HR, Lena felt a mix of emotions. There was still fear, but it was overshadowed by a sense of liberation. She wasn't just fighting for herself, she was fighting for every person who had ever been victimized by someone in a position of power. The meeting with HR was swift. The evidence spoke for itself, and the seriousness of Hartford's actions left no room for excuses. The HR director assured Lena that the matter would be handled with urgency and discretion, but she made it clear that she wasn't afraid to escalate it further if needed. By the end of the day, the company announced that Hartford was being placed on immediate suspension pending an investigation. Word spread quickly through the office, and Lena could feel the tension lift as her colleagues began to realize that the man who had loomed over them for so long was finally being held accountable. That evening, Lena sat on her couch, her phone buzzing with messages of support from colleagues who had noticed the shift in power dynamics. She smiled, knowing she had taken the first step toward justice, not just for herself, but for everyone who had ever felt powerless. The days following Mr. Hartford's suspension were a whirlwind for Lena. The office, once shadowed by his oppressive presence, felt lighter. Colleagues who had once been guarded and tense now exchanged knowing smiles and supportive nods. Lena could sense the unspoken gratitude in their eyes. They knew she had done something brave, though few knew the full extent of her battle. The investigation unfolded swiftly. With the mounting evidence Lena had provided and corroboration from a few brave colleagues who came forward, the company had no choice but to act decisively. Within a week, an email was sent to the entire staff announcing Hartford's termination. The carefully worded memo cited violations of company policy but stopped short of detailing his misconduct. Lena knew the corporate need for discretion, but the message was clear: Hartford's reign of intimidation was over. Despite the victory, Lena felt a lingering sense of unease. She had confronted Hartford and exposed his wrongdoing, but the experience had left its scars. That evening, she called Mia to share the news. "He's gone," Lena said, her voice a mixture of relief and exhaustion. "That's amazing, Lena," Mia replied. "You should be proud of yourself. You stood up to someone who thought he was untouchable, and you won." "I know," Lena said softly. "But I keep wondering if it's really over. What if he tries to retaliate in some way?" Mia's tone was firm. "He won't. Not with everything you've documented. If he tries anything, you have the upper hand. And remember, you're not alone in this. I'll always have your back." Lena smiled, the warmth of her friend's words easing her lingering fears. As she hung up, she realized she had done more than just stand up for herself, she had set an example. The next morning, Lena arrived at work to find a small, handwritten note on her desk. It was unsigned but simple and heartfelt: "Thank you for what you did. You've inspired us all." Her eyes welled with tears as she read the note. It was a reminder that her actions had ripple effects beyond her own situation. She had sparked courage in others, even if she hadn't intended to. The weeks that followed brought positive changes to the office. HR introduced stricter policies against workplace harassment and opened an anonymous hotline for employees to report misconduct. The company brought in an external consultant to review and improve its workplace culture, ensuring that no one else would have to endure what Lena had. Lena threw herself back into her work, finding solace in the rhythm of her daily tasks. She had always loved her job, and now, with the shadow of Hartford gone, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. One afternoon, her manager, a kind, empathetic woman named Miss Parker, called her into the office. "Lena, I wanted to personally thank you for your bravery," Miss Parker said, her voice filled with genuine admiration. "What you did wasn't easy, but it was necessary. You've made this a better place for everyone." Lena smiled, feeling a sense of validation she hadn't realized she needed. "Thank you, Miss Parker. I just did what I thought was right." Miss Parker leaned forward, a sparkle of excitement in her eyes. "You've shown incredible strength and integrity. I believe you have the potential to lead, Lena. There's an opening for an executive assistant position, and I think you'd be perfect for it. Would you be interested?" The offer took Lena by surprise, and for a moment, she was speechless. The promotion would be a significant step forward in her career, one she hadn't dared to dream of after everything she had been through. "I'd be honored," Lena said, her voice steady but brimming with emotion. As she walked out of Ms. Parker's office, Lena felt a sense of closure she hadn't expected. She had not only survived a nightmare but had emerged stronger and more determined. That evening, Lena sat on her balcony, watching the city lights twinkle against the dark sky. She thought about how far she had come, from the fear and humiliation of that first mistake to the triumph of reclaiming her life and career. She raised a glass of wine in a quiet toast to herself, whispering, "Here's to new beginnings and standing tall." Justice had been served, but more importantly, Lena had rediscovered her strength. She knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, she could face them with courage and integrity. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was thriving.